A dying 7-year-old girl rolled up to a Hell's Angel in a hospital cafeteria with a crayon drawing and 5 words that would shake Las Vegas to its foundation. Will you come to my party? What he discovered next, hidden in her medical files, in the bruises no one questioned, would trigger a series of events no one expected. Before we dive in, where in the world are you watching this from right now? Comment your city below. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. No BS, no clickbait. All right. You ready? Now let's get into the story. The coffee tasted like battery acid and regret. Joe Grizzly Maddox sat in the University Medical Center cafeteria, 4th cup of the night turning cold between his calloused hands. Outside, Vegas screamed with Christmas. Neon Santas climbing casino facades, slot machines singing their siren songs, drunk tourists stumbling down the strip in reindeer antlers. Inside, the pediatric ward was a morgue with a heartbeat. Machines beeped their mechanical prayers. The air reeked of industrial sanitizer trying to mask the smell of fear and dying cells. He shouldn't be here. Should be at the Iron Chapel, drinking bourbon with his brothers, celebrating another year above ground. But Axel was 3 floors up, liver shutting down, asking for him. And the club didn't abandon its dying. Joe traced the faded Emma tattoo on his forearm, his daughter's name in script that had blurred over 5 years of sun and scar tissue. The fluorescent lights turned his leather vest, 30 years of patches, road dirt, and blood, into something ancient and sacred. His knuckles were thick with old breaks, hands that had rebuilt pan heads and shattered jaws in equal measure. He lifted the cup, stopped. The squeak of rubber wheels on linoleum cut through the Christmas muzak. A wheelchair rolled toward him, too big for the tiny figure hunched inside. Joe's eyes, trained by 3 decades of spotting threats in dive bar shadows, catalogued details in seconds. IV pole swaying like a drunk metronome, hospital gown hanging loose, Santa hat sliding off a head that should have hair but didn't. The girl couldn't be older than 7. She stopped 3 feet from his table, clutching something against her chest. Her skin was the color of skim milk. Dark circles hung beneath eyes that were too blue, too knowing for a kid who should be believing in flying reindeer. "Excuse me," she whispered. Joe set down the cup, waited. She held out a piece of paper, crayon drawing, construction paper, the kind of thing kids make in art class. A Christmas tree. The word "please" at the top. Below it, "Come." "Will you come to my party?" Her voice barely carried over the hum of the vending machines. "Tomorrow. Christmas. I made cookies." Joe's first thought, where the hell are her parents? His second, where the hell are the nurses? No one was watching this sick kid roll around alone at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. He reached for the invitation. She flinched, sharp, instinctive, the movement of something used to being hit. Joe froze. His eyes dropped to her wrist where the IV entered. Purple-black bruises circled the pale skin, not the diffuse yellow of needle marks. These were precise, finger-shaped, 4 on top, 1 thumb underneath. Someone had grabbed this little girl, hard. 30 years of reading violence in pool hall parking lots and prison yards lit every nerve ending in his body on fire. "What's your name, darlin'?" he asked, his voice gentler than it had been in years. "Nicole." Joe's knees cracked like rifle shots as he lowered himself to eye level. Up close, he could see the tremor in her small hands, the way she held herself, curled inward, protecting vital organs, a fighter's instinct in a child's body. "Nicole, I'll be there," he said, And I'm bringing friends. He reached into his vest pocket, pulled out a Hell's Angels sticker, the death head grinning its skeletal grin. He pressed it onto the armrest of her wheelchair. Her eyes went wide. Really? Family doesn't break promises. She smiled then, gap-toothed, genuine, the first real light he'd seen in this tomb, and wheeled away toward the elevators. Joe stood, joints protesting, and watched her disappear around the corner. Alone. Still alone. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Hound's number. But first he walked to the nurse's station. The night nurse, Kelly, according to her badge, looked up from her charts. That little girl, Joe said. Nicole. Where's her family? Kelly's expression flickered, something between pity and anger. Her stepfather, Vincent Crow, he... The elevator dinged. Kelly's face went white. Joe turned. A man in a $5,000 suit stepped into the hallway, flanked by two men built like brick walls in cheap blazers. Vincent Crow had the smile of a shark who'd just smelled blood in the water, and he was staring directly at Joe. Crow walked past Joe like he was furniture. The shark smile never faltered as he strode toward the elevators, his enforcers trailing like shadows. He didn't speak, didn't acknowledge Joe's existence. The message was clear. You're beneath my notice. Joe's fists clenched hard enough to make his knuckles pop. Kelly exhaled like she'd been holding her breath underwater. That's him, she whispered. Vincent Crow. Tell me about Nicole. Kelly glanced at the elevator, then pulled Joe into the empty break room. It smelled like microwaved sadness and instant coffee. She kept her voice low, fast. Leukemia. Diagnosed 6 months ago. Her mother, Isabella Cortez, died 2 years back. Car accident on the 215. Nicole went to live with her stepfather. Kelly's jaw tightened. He's been her legal guardian ever since. And in 3 weeks, he's visited exactly 0 times. Joe felt something dark and cold settle in his gut. What kind of man doesn't visit his dying kid? The kind who's waiting for her to die. Kelly's eyes were wet. I shouldn't say that, but God help me. That's what it feels like. Joe didn't go back to Axel's room. Not yet. He took the stairs to the 4th floor, boots echoing in the stairwell like a heartbeat. Room 447. The door was cracked open, nightlight bleeding into the hallway. Nicole was asleep in the mechanical bed, tubes running from her arms like puppet strings. But she wasn't alone in her sleep. She clutched a photograph against her chest with both hands. Even in the dim light, Joe could make out the image. A beautiful woman with Nicole's eyes, dark hair catching sunlight, laughing at the camera. Isabella. Her mother. Joe eased into the visitor's chair, that horrible vinyl chair every hospital in America seemed to buy in bulk. The beeping of the heart monitor filled the silence. And suddenly, he wasn't here. He was in County General 5 years ago, watching Emma's chest rise and fall with mechanical assistance. The drunk driver had walked away with a broken wrist. Emma lasted 3 days. The smell was the same. Antiseptic trying to cover death. The helplessness was the same. All the road rage and bar fights in the world couldn't punch cancer or stop internal bleeding. Are you real? Joe's head snapped up. Nicole was awake, eyes wide in the darkness. Yeah, darling, I'm real. She relaxed slightly. I thought maybe I dreamed you. Nope. Still here. He nodded at the drawing taped to her bedside table, the Christmas tree invitation. You made that yourself? She nodded, shy now. The art therapy lady brings supplies on Tuesdays. You don't have crayons at home? Nicole's face shuddered. Daddy Vincent says they're messy. He doesn't like messes. Joe kept his voice gentle, but his insides were screaming. "Does Daddy Vincent visit you here?" Silence. Long enough that Joe thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "He says the hospital makes me sicker. He wants me to come home soon." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I don't want to go home." Jesus Christ. Joe swallowed the rage burning up his throat. He rolled up his sleeve instead, showed her the faded tattoo. "See this? Emma, my daughter." Nicole leaned forward, studying it with the intense focus only kids possess. "She loved Christmas too," Joe said. "Used to make drawings just like yours. She'd have liked you." "Where is she now?" "She's gone. Car accident, 5 years back." Nicole's small hand reached out, touched the tattoo with one finger. "I'm sorry." "Me too, darling." Then she smiled. A real smile this time, not the scared half-thing from earlier. Gap-toothed and genuine and so damn fragile it made Joe's chest hurt. "Will you really bring friends tomorrow?" Joe nodded. "Darling, you're going to meet the whole damn family." "How many friends?" "Enough to shake the building." Her eyes went wide with wonder. She settled back into her pillow, still clutching her mother's photograph. "That sounds loud." "Loudest Christmas you've ever heard." 20 minutes later, Joe stood in the parking garage, phone pressed to his ear. The Vegas night was cold, desert cold that cut through leather. "Hound, I need every patch in Nevada at University Medical tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. No excuses." His VP's voice crackled through the line. "What's the play?" "We're giving a little girl the Christmas she deserves." Silence. Then, "You got it, brother. I'll make the calls." Joe hung up. Started his Harley, the engine roar echoing off concrete like a promise. He was halfway out of the garage when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. "Stay away from my family, Mr. Maddox. This is your only warning." Joe stared at the screen. Then a second message appeared. A photograph. The Iron Chapel. His clubhouse. Someone had been watching. The roar started at 8:47 a.m. 150 Harley-Davidsons rolling down Charleston Boulevard sounded like the end of the world wearing leather and chrome. The pavement vibrated. Car alarms screamed. A flock of pigeons exploded from the hospital roof like shrapnel. Joe led the pack, throttle wide open, a 4-foot teddy bear strapped to his sissy bar like a hostage. Behind him, Hound on his blacked-out Road King, Trigger with his gray braids whipping in the wind, Smokey, whose belly hung over his belt, but whose fists could drop a bull, Wrench still wearing his Army Ranger tattoos like war medals, road names and scarred faces, every man grinning like they were 17 again. They descended on University Medical Center like a leather tsunami. Doctors pressed against windows. A security guard reached for his radio, then thought better of it. The ground didn't just shake, it thrummed, a bass note that rattled teeth and made the flagpole sing. Joe killed his engine. The sudden silence was deafening. Then 149 other engines cut out in perfect synchronization. "Let's give a little girl a Christmas," Joe said. They marched into the pediatric wing, boots echoing off linoleum like a war drum, leather creaking, chains rattling. Nurses stumbled back. A doctor dropped his clipboard. But then someone started clapping. A kid in a wheelchair, bald from chemo, eyes wide with wonder. The applause spread. Room 447 couldn't contain them all. The bikers spilled into the hallway, into the common area, a sea of patches and gray beards and tattooed forearms. Nicole sat in her wheelchair, Santa hat on her head, mouth hanging open in shock. Joe knelt down, joints cracking, and presented the teddy bear. It was bigger than she was. "Merry Christmas, darling." her eyes filled with tears, the good kind. She hugged the bear, then hugged Joe's neck so hard he couldn't breathe. Hound produced a miniature leather vest from his saddlebag. Honorary Hell's Angel, embroidered in gold thread across the back. They helped her into it over her hospital gown. It fit perfect. Trigger handed her a brand new set of crayons, the 64-pack with the sharpener in the back. Smokey started singing Jingle Bells in a voice like a cement mixer. The others joined in, off-key and loud and absolutely goddamn perfect. Kids from other rooms peeked out, bald heads, IV poles, eyes shining. The nurses weren't stunned anymore. They were smiling, some crying. For 20 minutes, the pediatric wing of University Medical Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, wasn't a place where children went to die. It was a place where families came together. Joe watched Nicole laugh, really laugh, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep and untouched by sickness. She was showing Wrench how to draw a Christmas tree. He was terrible at it. She didn't care. "Group photo!" someone shouted. They crammed into the room, spilled into the hallway. Nicole sat in her wheelchair at the center, surrounded by leather and steel. Someone's phone flashed. Then another, then 20 more. As they filed out, boots echoing back down the hallway, Joe felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. Peace. He clapped Hound on the shoulder. "Maybe Emma's watching. Maybe she sent me here." Hound nodded. "You did good, brother." The parking lot was still full of chrome when Joe reached his bike. He was untying the teddy bear straps when the black Escalade pulled up. Tinted windows, diplomatic plates, the kind of vehicle that cost more than most people's houses. Vincent Crowe stepped out in a charcoal suit that probably cost $5,000. Slicked back hair, tan that came from a salon, not the sun, shark eyes that didn't blink. He walked straight to Joe, smile in place. "You the one throwing parties in my daughter's room?" Joe straightened, every instinct screaming. "Your daughter asked. I delivered." "That's touching." Crowe's smile vanished like someone flipped a switch. "But Nicole is my concern, not yours, not your club's." He pulled a business card from his inside pocket. Gold trim, embossed lettering, Crowe Capital Investments. Joe didn't take it. Crowe tucked it into Joe's vest pocket anyway. "You ever hear what happens to people who stick their noses in my family business?" Crowe's voice dropped. Not loud. Didn't need to be. "They develop unfortunate accidents, house fires, motorcycle crashes. Sometimes entire clubhouses burn down while everyone's asleep." Joe didn't flinch, didn't blink, but his gut was screaming. Crowe's smile returned. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Maddox." He got back in the Escalade. It pulled away smooth as silk. Hound appeared at Joe's shoulder. "What the hell was that?" "Trouble." Joe's phone rang at 11:47 p.m. He was at the Iron Chapel, 4th Beer Inn, watching the news coverage of the hospital visit. Local stations were calling it heartwarming, restoring faith in humanity. Kelly's voice was shaking. "Joe!" Nicole's blood work came back. He sat up straight. And her toxin levels spiked, dramatically. But we didn't administer any new medication, not since yesterday. Kelly was crying now. "Dr. Keller is insisting she be discharged tomorrow morning into her stepfather's care, against medical advice." Joe's blood turned to ice. "Don't let her leave." "I can't stop a legal guardian, Joe. I'm just a nurse. Kelly, listen to me. Do not let that little girl leave with Vincent Crowe." "I don't have the authority." Joe hung up. Turned to Hound. "We got a problem. A big one." The clubhouse door slammed open. Wrench stood there, phone in hand, face white. "Joe, you need to see this. Now." He held up his phone. Security footage. Grainy, but clear enough. Vincent Crowe entering Nicole's hospital room at 10:15 p.m., reaching into his jacket, pulling out a syringe, injecting something into Nicole's IV bag when the nurse stepped out, then leaving. Smooth, professional, like he'd done it 100 times before. The footage timestamp was from tonight. 2 hours after the Christmas party. Joe's phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number. I warned you to stay away. Now watch what happens when people don't listen. Joe's Harley screamed down Las Vegas Boulevard at 1 a.m., neon bleeding across chrome like open veins. The Mirage Royale rose from the strip like a glass cathedral built to worship money. 37 floors of marble and sin. Vincent Crowe's kingdom. Joe killed the engine in the parking garage. Concrete and exhaust fumes. His leather vest felt like armor. He was alone. This wasn't a war party. This was recon. Find out what Crowe was really doing to Nicole. Get proof. Get out. He walked through the casino floor. A wolf in a sheep pen. Slot machines sang their electronic hymns. High rollers in Armani suits sipped champagne at blackjack tables. Crystal chandeliers threw prismatic light across marble floors that probably cost more per square foot than Joe's entire clubhouse. Women in cocktail dresses that cost a month's rent laughed at jokes that weren't funny, clinging to men who could afford them. Joe's boots left scuff marks on the polished stone. Security noticed. 2 gorillas in cheap suits drifted toward him, hands moving to earpieces. Joe stopped at the concierge desk. Gold fixtures, fresh roses, a kid in a bow tie who looked like he'd never seen dirt. Vincent Crowe. I need to see him. The kid's smile was professionally polite. Mr. Crowe is unavailable. If you'd like to leave a message, tell him Joe Maddox is here. He'll want to see me. The kid's eyes flickered to the security guards. They were 10 feet away now, closing. Then the kid's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His face went carefully neutral. Mr. Crowe will see you now. Please follow these gentlemen. The elevator to the penthouse played jazz that made Joe want to punch something. The 2 enforcers flanking him were ex-military, Desert Storm tattoos, 1,000-yard stares, the kind of men who'd done wet work in countries that didn't exist on maps anymore. They didn't speak, didn't need to. The elevator opened directly into Crowe's office. It was obscene. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the strip. The city sprawled below like a circuit board made of light, modern art that looked like someone had vomited primary colors on canvas, probably worth 6 figures each. A mahogany desk the size of Joe's bike, a humidor of Cuban cigars that were illegal to own but easy to buy if you had money. Vincent Crowe stood at the window, hands in his pockets, silhouetted against Vegas. Whiskey? He didn't turn around. No. Suit yourself. Crowe poured himself 3 fingers of amber liquid that probably cost more than Joe's mortgage. He finally turned, suit perfect, hair perfect, that shark smile in place. You're persistent. I respect that. He walked to the desk, slid a manila folder across the mahogany. Joe didn't touch it. Open it, Crowe said. Joe flipped it open. His stomach dropped. Photos. The iron chapel from every angle. His brothers, Hound, Trigger, Smokey, Wrench. License plates visible, addresses printed underneath. Building schematics, property records, rap sheets going back decades. I know who you are, Crowe said, voice soft, conversational. I know what you do. I also know you're a felon on parole. Aggravated assault 2019. 1 call to the right judge, and you're back inside. 3 strikes, Mr. Maddox. You'd die in prison. Joe's fists clenched. Crowe noticed, smiled wider. This isn't about me, Joe said, voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. It's about Nicole. Crowe laughed, genuine, warm, the sound a father might make watching his kid's school play. "Nicole is dying, Mr. Maddox. Leukemia is terminal. I'm ensuring her final days are comfortable. At home, where she belongs, not in a hospital surrounded by strangers who don't love her." "You're lying." The smile vanished. Crow's eyes went dead, shark eyes seeing prey. "Prove it." Joe stood. "I will." "No," Crow said quietly. "You won't." The parking garage was 5 levels down. Fluorescent lights, oil stains, the smell of rubber and exhaust. Joe made it 20 feet from the elevator before they hit him. 4 men, black tactical gear, brass knuckles catching light, steel-toed boots. The first punch caught him in the kidney, professional, brutal, placed to hurt without killing. Joe spun, threw an elbow that connected with cartilage. Someone's nose exploded, blood sprayed across concrete. Then they swarmed, fists, boots, the wet crack of ribs breaking. Joe fought back, 30 years of bar fights and prison yards, but 4-on-1 was math that didn't care about heart. A boot to his knee, his leg buckled, his face hit concrete, and the world tasted like copper and gasoline. They didn't stop, methodical, professional, breaking things that would heal eventually, but hurt like hell forever. Then silence. Joe lay on the concrete, bleeding. Breathing was agony. His left eye was swelling shut. One of them, the one whose nose Joe broke, crouched down. Blood dripped from his face onto Joe's cheek. "Next time," he whispered, "we visit your clubhouse. With gasoline." Boots echoed away. An engine started. Tires squealed. Joe was alone. He dragged himself to his Harley, every movement sending white-hot spikes through his ribs. His face felt like hamburger. Blood dripped onto the concrete, making abstract art. He'd walked into a trap, like an amateur, like a kid. And now Crow knew he was a threat. Worse, he'd endangered the club, put targets on every brother's back. His phone buzzed. Text message, unknown number, a photo loaded, the Iron Chapel. Someone standing outside with a gas can. The timestamp, 47 seconds ago. Joe's blood turned to ice. His phone rang. Hound's number. Joe answered, tasting blood. "Brother?" Hound's voice was tight, controlled. "We got company." In the background, Joe heard engines, not Harleys. Trucks, diesel, multiple. Then Hound's voice, sharp. "Everybody out, now!" The line went dead. Joe limped through the Iron Chapel's door at 2:37 a.m., and the room went silent. Blood crusted his beard. His left eye was swollen shut, purple and black like a rotten plum. Every breath rattled in his chest, ribs cracked, maybe broken. He held himself together through sheer spite. Hound was across the room in 3 strides. "Jesus Christ, what happened?" "Crow happened." The clubhouse exploded. Trigger slammed his fist on the bar, bottles jumping. "We ride. Now. We burn that bastard's casino to the ground." "And then what?" Smokey's voice cut through the rage. "We're not equipped for this. Crow's got money, lawyers, cops on payroll. We're outlaws. We lose this fight. So we just let him—" "I didn't say that." Voices overlapping, rising, the air thick with fury and fear. Joe sank into a chair. Someone pressed ice wrapped in a bar towel to his ribs. He didn't speak, just listened to his brothers tear themselves apart over what to do about a little girl they'd met yesterday. His phone buzzed. Text message. "Nurse Kelly. They discharged Nicole an hour ago, against medical advice." Dr. Keller signed off. "I'm so sorry." Joe's heart stopped. His fingers were shaking so hard he could barely dial. Kelly answered on the first ring, crying, "Joe, I couldn't stop them. Keller had the paperwork. Crow had lawyers. I'm just a nurse." "Kelly, slow down. What happened?" "I pulled her old records." before Crow became her guardian. Kelly's voice cracked. Joe, she was getting better. The leukemia was in remission 2 years ago. It only came back after she moved in with him. Ice flooded Joe's veins. Send me everything, every file, every blood test, now. The argument stopped. Every brother in the room was staring. Joe's phone chimed, files downloading. He spread his phone on the bar, then grabbed Hound's tablet, pulling up the documents. Blood work, treatment records, dates and numbers that meant nothing to him. Wrench, get over here. Wrench, former Army medic, did 3 tours patching up soldiers in Kandahar, leaned over the tablet. His finger traced the numbers. His face went white. Jesus Christ. What? Hound demanded. Someone's been poisoning her. Wrench's voice was hollow. Low doses of thallium, tasteless, colorless, dissolves in water, causes nausea, hair loss, organ damage, mimics cancer symptoms perfectly. He pulled up another document. Look, every time her condition worsens, it's right after she goes home for a weekend visit. Every single time. The room went dead silent. The kind of silence that comes before violence. Then Hound spoke, voice like gravel. That sick son of a bitch is killing her. Why? Joe knew, had known since Crow smiled at him in that obscene office. Money, her mom's estate. Isabella Cortez, I looked her up while riding over. She inherited her father's casino fortune. $50 million held in trust for Nicole until she turns 18. If Nicole dies before that, Crow inherits everything. Trigger finished. Joe stood, every muscle screaming. He pulled off his vest, 30 years of patches and road dust, and dropped it on the bar. His torso was a canvas of bruises, purple and black and yellow. I'm not asking you to follow me into this. His voice was steady despite the pain. Crow will burn us down. The cops won't help. They're in his pocket. If we move, we're domestic terrorists in their eyes. FBI, ATF. Every alphabet agency will come down on us. He looked around the room, at faces he'd known for decades. Brothers who'd stood beside him through bar fights and funerals and prison sentences. But I'm going, because I already lost Emma, and I'll be damned if I lose Nicole. Silence. Then Hound stood, walked to Joe, stood shoulder to shoulder. Brothers stand. Trigger stood, then Smokey, then Wrench. One by one, every man in the Iron Chapel rose to his feet. 43 brothers, scarred and gray and mean as junkyard dogs. Smokey grinned, gap-toothed. Guess we're going to war. Joe pulled his vest back on. Hound, call Reno, call Barstow, call Phoenix. I want every patch west of the Rockies rolling toward Vegas by sunrise. How many we talking? All of them. Wrench pulled up building schematics on his laptop. Where's Crow got her? Bellagio, penthouse suite, 35th floor. Trigger whistled low. That's a fortress, private elevator, armed security, probably ex-Blackwater types. I don't care if it's Fort Knox, Joe said. We're getting her out. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. You should have listened. Then a photo loaded. Nicole. In a hospital bed, but not at University Medical. A bedroom. Expensive furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Strip. Crow's penthouse. She was unconscious. IV bag hanging. A figure in a white coat stood beside her. Dr. Keller. He was holding a syringe. Another text. 24 hours. Then the cancer wins. Such a tragedy. Joe's phone rang. Different number. Nevada area code. He answered. A woman's voice. Professional. Clipped. Mr. Maddox, this is Detective Linda Vargas, LVMPD Major Crimes. I need to speak with you about Vincent Crow, tonight. before you do something you can't take back." Joe looked at his brothers, at the blood on the floor, at Nicole's photo on his phone. "Where?" "Denny's on Tropicana. 1 hour. Come alone." The line went dead. Hound was already shaking his head. "It's a setup." "Maybe." Joe grabbed his keys. "But if there's even a chance she can help..." The clubhouse door exploded inward. Not knocked. Exploded. Wood splinters and smoke. Flashbang grenades rolled across the floor. The world turned white. The flashbangs hadn't been cops. They'd been Crow's men. A distraction. A message. By the time Joe's vision cleared and the ringing in his ears faded to a dull scream, the attackers were gone. Just smoke and the smell of cordite and a brick through the window with a note wrapped around it. Tick-tock. 4 hours later, Joe stood in a Walgreens parking lot off Tropicana, watching Detective Linda Vargas step out of an unmarked Crown Vic. She was 40-something, Latina, tired eyes that had seen too much. She didn't offer a handshake. "You're planning something stupid," she said. "You're a detective. Detect." Vargas didn't smile. "I've been investigating Vincent Crow for 6 years. Money laundering for the Sinaloa cartel. Human trafficking. Murder. I can't make anything stick. He's got judges, city council, half the department on his payroll." Joe pulled out his phone, showed her the medical files. Nicole's blood work, the thallium levels, the timeline. Vargas's face went pale. Her hand shook slightly as she scrolled through the documents. "Jesus Christ, he's poisoning her. Can you get a warrant?" Vargas looked up. Her eyes said everything. "This isn't enough. It's circumstantial. A defense attorney would tear it apart. Contaminated samples, hospital error, grieving stepfather. By the time we build a case that'll hold up in court, that little girl will be dead." Joe's jaw clenched so hard his teeth hurt. "Then I'm doing this without a warrant." "If you go after him, you'll be labeled a domestic terrorist organization. I can't protect you. FBI, ATF, they'll come down on you like the hammer of God. Your club will be finished." "My club will survive." Joe looked toward the Strip, toward the Bellagio rising like a glass tower against the night sky. "That little girl won't." Vargas was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her jacket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. "These are Crow's security protocols. Shift changes, camera blind spots. I can't help you, but if someone happened to find this blowing around a parking lot..." She dropped it on the ground, walked back to her car. Joe picked it up. The Bellagio at 5 a.m. was a different beast than the daytime chaos. The casino floor was quieter, just hardcore gamblers and insomniacs. Joe stood across the street, binoculars trained on the 35th floor. Crow's penthouse occupied the entire level. Private elevator, armed security rotating every 4 hours. Cameras on every angle. Windows that probably cost more than Joe's house. Wrench lowered his own binoculars. "We can't breach this, not without..." "A tactical team. It's a fortress. Then we build a bigger hammer." By 6 a.m., 200 motorcycles lined up in the parking lot of a shuttered auto shop 3 blocks from the Bellagio. Reno chapter, Barstow, Phoenix, Tucson. Brothers Joe hadn't seen in years, rolling in on bikes that sounded like controlled explosions. The biggest gathering of Hell's Angels in Nevada history. Joe stood on the hood of a pickup truck, looking at the sea of leather and chrome and scarred faces. He held up Nicole's crayon drawing, the Christmas tree, the word please in green crayon. "This is what we're fighting for." His voice carried across the parking lot. "A 7-year-old girl whose stepfather is murdering her for money. The cops can't help. The law won't help, so we help." He taped the drawing to his gas tank. "We cross this line, we don't come back. Some of us might die. All of us will go to prison. The feds will label us terrorists. Our families will suffer. Our clubs will be destroyed. Silence. 200 men holding their breath. But that little girl gets to live. Hound revved his engine. The sound was a shotgun blast in the morning quiet. Then let's make it count. Joe looked at the Bellagio, lit up against the dawn sky like a beacon, like a challenge, like everything wrong with America wrapped in glass and greed. He twisted the throttle. 200 engines roared to life. The sound was an earthquake. Car alarms screamed, windows rattled. A flock of pigeons exploded from a nearby building like shrapnel. They hit the Bellagio parking garage like a tidal wave of chrome and fury. Security didn't know what hit them. The gate arm snapped like a toothpick. Alarms screamed. Guards in cheap suits fumbled for radios, for weapons, but you can't stop a stampede with a handgun. The bikers flooded into the underground levels, boots on concrete, chains rattling, the roar of engines echoing off walls designed to contain expensive cars, not revolutions. Chaos. Pure chaos. Joe saw Hound grappling with a security guard, saw Trigger ram his bike through a door marked authorized personnel only, saw smoke. Someone had thrown something, tear gas or a flashbang, hard to tell in the chaos. Then he saw the service elevator, emergency access, away from the main corridors. He made a split-second decision, peeled away from the pack, the roar of his engine swallowed by the larger thunder. No one saw him go. No one could see anything in the smoke and confusion. Joe ditched his bike by the service entrance, grabbed a tire iron from his saddlebag, 2 feet of steel, grip wrapped in electrical tape. It wasn't much. It would have to be enough. The service elevator was old, industrial, the kind meant for maintenance crews and room service carts. It shuddered as it climbed. Joe watched the numbers tick up. His ribs screamed. His eye was still half swollen. Blood crusted his beard. He looked like hell. He felt worse. 25th floor. 30th. His phone buzzed. Text from Hound. "Where are you?" Joe didn't answer. 33rd, 34th. The elevator shuddered to a stop. 35th floor. The doors opened. A hallway, marble floors, crown molding, soft lighting designed to whisper wealth. And at the end of the hall, double doors. Crow's penthouse. Joe stepped out. The elevator doors closed behind him with a soft ding. The hallway was silent except for his boots on marble. He reached the doors, pressed his ear against the wood. Voices inside, muffled, male, multiple, then a child's cry. Nicole. Joe gripped the tire iron, kicked the door. It exploded inward, wood and brass, and the satisfying crunch of a lock giving way. The penthouse opened before him. Floor-to-ceiling windows, the strip stretching out like a circuit board, modern art on the walls, and in the center of the living room, Vincent Crowe. He wasn't alone. Dr. Keller stood beside a hospital bed. Nicole strapped down, IV running, unconscious. But it was the third man that made Joe's blood freeze. Detective Vargas's partner, Sergeant Kyle Brennan, in full uniform, gun drawn, pointed at Joe's chest. "Drop the iron, Maddox," Brennan said. "You're under arrest for breaking and entering, assault, and about 15 other felonies I'm going to enjoy reading off." Crowe smiled. That shark smile. "I told you," he said softly. "You should have listened." Behind Brennan, the penthouse door to the private elevator opened. 4 more cops stepped out. All armed, all pointing guns at Joe. Joe looked at Nicole, her chest rising and falling, the IV bag hanging above her, clear liquid dripping into her veins. Poison. He was out of time, out of options. He raised the tire iron anyway. Brennan's finger tightened on the trigger. Then the entire building shook. Not metaphorically. Actually, shook. The windows rattled. The chandeliers swayed. A sound like thunder, but continuous, growing, a bass note that made bones vibrate. Crow's smile vanished. What the hell? The windows exploded inward. Not from gunfire, from sound. 200 Harley-Davidsons in the parking garage below, all revving at once. The sound channeled up through the building's infrastructure like a weapon. The sonic assault was deafening. Brennan stumbled, hands going to his ears. Joe moved. Joe swung the tire iron like a club. Brennan's gun went flying, skittered across marble, disappeared under a leather sofa worth more than a car. The other cops were still disoriented, hands pressed to ears, the building vibrating like a tuning fork struck by God. Joe didn't stop. Charged past them, toward Nicole. Dr. Keller saw him coming, grabbed a syringe from the medical cart. Clear liquid, the final dose. His hand was shaking, but his intent was clear. Joe was 10 feet away. Keller moved toward Nicole's IV port. Joe hurled the tire iron. It spun end over end, 2 feet of steel rotating through expensive air, hit Keller's wrist with a crack like a baseball bat connecting. The syringe flew from his hand, shattered against the window. Keller screamed, cradling his broken wrist. Joe reached the bed. Nicole's eyes were closed, her chest rising and falling too slowly. The IV bag hung above her, poison dripping into her veins. He ripped the needle from her arm, tore the tape away. Blood welled up, but he didn't care. "You're too late." Joe spun. Crow stood by the window, phone still in hand. That shark smile returning. He'd regained his composure, always in control. "She's been getting double doses for the past 12 hours. Even if you get her to a hospital now, the damage is done. Her organs are shutting down." Something in Joe broke. Not broke. Shattered. He roared. A sound from somewhere primal, somewhere beyond words. The sound a father makes when he's already lost one daughter and refuses to lose another. He charged. Crow barely had time to drop the phone before Joe hit him like a freight train. They crashed through the glass coffee table. $6,000 of artisan craftsmanship exploding into diamonds. Crow was younger, maybe 45 to Joe's 52. Worked out. Probably had a personal trainer. Joe had 30 years of bar fights and prison yards. He drove his elbow into Crow's ribs, felt something crack. Crow gasped, tried to roll away. Joe grabbed his collar, hauled him up, slammed his fist into that perfect face. Once, twice, blood sprayed from Crow's nose. "You killed her mother!" Joe's voice was raw. "You were killing Nicole for money!" Crow laughed, actually laughed, blood in his teeth. "Prove it." Joe hit him again. Below, the sound of the engines cut off, sudden silence more deafening than the roar. Then a new sound, boots, hundreds of boots, marching through the Bellagio lobby. The Hells Angels had breached the main floor. Hound led the charge through the casino, chain swinging, clearing a path, slot machines still ringing their electronic songs, tourists screaming, diving behind craps tables, security trying to form a line but breaking like water against rocks. The bikers didn't hurt civilians, didn't have to. They were a force of nature, leather and chrome and rage made manifest. The sound of boots on marble was deafening, a war drum that made the chandeliers shake. "Clear the floor!" Hound's voice boomed. "This ain't about you!" They hit the main elevator bank. Trigger produced a crowbar, pried open the service panel. Wrench, former Army Ranger, new buildings, new weak points. 35th floor. Move. Back in the penthouse, Joe had Crow pinned against the window. The strip glittered 35 stories below. All those lights, all that money, all that sin. Crow was still smiling through broken teeth. You think you've won? I own this city. By tomorrow your club is finished. Terrorism charges, federal prison. You'll die inside. Worth it. Joe pulled back his fist for the final blow. The elevator dinged. Not the service elevator Joe had used, the private elevator. Crow's personal express. The doors opened. Hound stepped out, chain in hand. Behind him, Trigger, Smokey, Wrench, and 40 more brothers. They flooded the penthouse like an ocean reclaiming land. Brennan and his dirty cops didn't stand a chance. They were disarmed in seconds, zip-tied with their own cuffs, shoved into corners. Hound walked to Joe, looked at Crow bleeding against the window. He confess? Not in words. Good enough for me. Hound turned to Wrench. Get the girl stable, now. Wrench was already moving, medic bag open, checking Nicole's vitals. His face went pale. Her pulse is weak, respiration shallow. We need a hospital, 5 minutes ago. Crow laughed. Wet, choking. Too late, I told you, she's already... The penthouse door, the one Joe had kicked in, burst open again. Detective Linda Vargas stepped through. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, FBI agents, windbreakers, serious faces, and someone else, a woman in her 60s, elegant, fury in her eyes. Isabella's mother, Nicole's grandmother. Vargas held up a phone. Vincent Crow, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 30 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading. She looked at Joe. We've been recording everything through Brennan's body cam. He didn't know we flipped it to live stream. Every word, every confession. Crow's face drained of color. That's impossible. Brennan's mine. He was wearing a wire, Vargas said. For the past 3 months, we've been building a case. You just gift-wrapped it. Nicole's grandmother pushed past the agents, saw her granddaughter on the bed, saw Wrench working frantically. Is she alive? Wrench said. Barely. We need an ambulance. Now. Vargas was already on her radio. Joe stepped back from Crow. Let the FBI agents swarm forward with handcuffs. Watched them read him his rights, words that meant nothing to a man who thought he was above the law. Joe walked to Nicole's bed. Her grandmother was holding her hand, crying. I didn't know, the grandmother whispered. I trusted him. I thought she was just sick. I didn't know he was... You know now, Joe said quietly. Nicole's eyes fluttered, opened, unfocused at first, then finding Joe's face. You came, she whispered. Joe's throat tightened. Told you. Family doesn't leave. Sirens wailed outside, real ambulances this time, not Crow's hired killers. Paramedics burst into the penthouse with a stretcher. As they loaded Nicole, she reached out, grabbed Joe's hand. Don't go. I'm not going anywhere, darling. They wheeled her toward the elevator. Joe followed. Hound fell in beside him. Brother, the feds are going to want statements. They're talking about dropping charges against the club. Public service, civilian rescue, all that, but... Joe wasn't listening. He was watching Nicole's face as the paramedics worked, watching her chest rise and fall, watching her fight. The elevator doors started to close. A hand caught them, forced them open. Crow stood there, handcuffed, flanked by FBI agents, blood dripping from his broken nose. But he was smiling. She's still going to die, he said. The poison's already in her system. You're just prolonging the inevitable. One of the FBI agents started to pull him back. Nicole's grandmother stepped forward and slapped Vincent Crowe so hard his head snapped to the side. "That's for my daughter," she said. Then she turned to the agents. "Get him out of my sight before I do worse." The elevator doors closed. Joe rode down in silence, holding Nicole's hand while the paramedics worked. 35 floors, each one feeling like an eternity. The doors opened on the ground floor. Chaos. The Bellagio lobby looked like a war zone. Broken slot machines, overturned tables, 200 bikers standing in formation, leather-clad and silent, creating a corridor from the elevator to the waiting ambulance outside. A path of protection. Joe carried Nicole out himself, refused to let go, walked beside the stretcher through the corridor of brothers. Their faces scarred and hard, but every man's eyes were wet. The morning sun hit them as they emerged. Vegas in daylight looked tired, worn, the neon dead, and the streets littered with the previous night's excess. The ambulance doors opened. Nicole's grandmother climbed in, turned to Joe. "Come with us, please." Joe looked at Hound. His VP nodded. "Go. We'll handle the feds." Joe climbed into the ambulance. The doors slammed shut. The siren wailed. And as they screamed through Vegas traffic, Nicole's vitals started to crash. The heart monitor flatlined. The flatline scream filled the ambulance like a siren from hell. "She's crashing!" The paramedic, young, maybe 25, name tag reading Chen, grabbed the defibrillator. "Charging! Clear!" Nicole's small body jerked. The monitor stayed flat. "Again! 200! Clear!" Joe pressed himself against the ambulance wall, ribs screaming, watching helplessly. Not again. Not like Emma. Not another little girl dying while he stood there useless. Nicole's grandmother was praying in Spanish, words tumbling over each other, desperate bargaining with God. "Come on, sweetheart." Chen's hands moved with practiced efficiency. Chest compressions, checking airway, administering epinephrine. "Don't you quit on me." The monitor flickered, then beeped, weak, irregular, but a heartbeat. Chen exhaled. "Got her. But barely. How far to University Medical?" 3 minutes, the driver shouted back. Nicole's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, searching. "Joe?" He was beside her in an instant, taking her hand. "Right here, darlin'. Am I dying?" The question hit like a bullet. Joe squeezed her hand. "No, you're fighting, and you're winning." The ambulance screamed through a red light, horn blaring. Vegas morning traffic parting like the Red Sea. 2 minutes. Nicole's vitals stabilized. Not good, but stable enough. The ambulance backed into the University Medical Emergency Bay. Doors flew open. A trauma team was waiting. Nurse Kelly had called ahead, told them everything. They pulled Nicole out on the stretcher. Kelly was there, tears streaming down her face, shouting medical terms Joe didn't understand. Thallium poisoning, acute exposure, multi-organ involvement. The doctors were already moving. IV lines, blood draws, a crash cart standing by. Nicole's grandmother tried to follow. A nurse gently stopped her. "Family waiting room. We'll update you every 15 minutes, I promise." Joe started to turn away. "Wait." Nicole's voice, small, scared. He looked back. She held out her hand. The Hell's Angels sticker, the one he'd given her that first night, was clutched in her palm. Somehow she'd kept it through everything. "Don't go." Joe looked at the doctors, at Kelly, at the grandmother. Kelly nodded. 10 minutes. That's all I can give you." Joe followed them into the trauma bay. The next 6 hours were a blur of blood tests and chelation therapy and doctors speaking in quiet, urgent tones. Joe sat in a plastic chair outside the ICU, still wearing his leather vest, still covered in Crow's blood and his own. Hound showed up at noon with coffee and a clean shirt. "Feds want a statement. I told them you're busy." "How bad is it? For the club?" "Vargas went to bat for us. Called it a civilian rescue operation. They're dropping the terrorism angle." Hound's voice lowered. "But we're gonna have heat for a while. ATF's sniffing around. Some congressman is calling for hearings." "Worth it." "Damn right." Hound sat beside him. "How's the kid?" "Fighting." They sat in silence. Brothers didn't need words. At 4 p.m. a doctor emerged. Indian woman, maybe 40, exhaustion written in every line of her face. Dr. Patel, according to her ID badge. "She's stable. The chelation therapy is working. We're flushing the thallium from her system, but it's going to be a long road. Kidney damage, possible neurological effects. She'll need months of treatment." Joe's chest loosened for the first time in hours. "But she'll live?" Dr. Patel smiled. Tired. Real. "She'll live. Thanks to you. Another hour, and we'd be having a very different conversation." Nicole's grandmother appeared from the waiting room. She'd been crying for hours, mascara long gone, expensive clothes rumpled. She looked like a woman who'd aged a decade in a day. "Can I see her?" "10 minutes. She needs rest." The grandmother turned to Joe, took his scarred, calloused hands in hers. "You saved my granddaughter's life. How do I even begin to thank you?" Joe didn't know what to say. "You don't. You just love her. Keep her safe." "I will. I swear on Isabella's grave I will." She went into the ICU. Joe started to leave. "Mr. Maddox?" Dr. Patel's voice stopped him. "She's been asking for you. Every time she wakes up. Won't settle until someone tells her you're still here." Joe's throat tightened. "Can I?" "5 minutes." The ICU was a place of beeping machines and hushed voices. Nicole looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, tubes running from her arms, monitors tracking every heartbeat. But she was awake. She smiled when she saw him, gap-toothed, genuine. "You stayed." Joe pulled up a chair, his knees cracked. Everything hurt. "Told you, family doesn't leave." "Am I really going to be okay?" "Yeah, darling, you're going to be okay." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "What happens now? Do I have to go back to Daddy Vincent?" "No." Joe's voice was iron. "Never. He's going to prison for a long, long time. You're going to live with your grandmother, in a house with all the crayons you want." Nicole's eyes filled with tears. The good kind. "Really? Really?" She reached out, took his hand. Her grip was weak but determined. "Will you visit me after I go home?" Joe felt something crack in his chest. The last piece of wall he'd built after Emma died, finally crumbling. "Every damn week, if you want." "I want." A nurse poked her head in. "Time's up. She needs rest." Joe stood, started to pull his hand away. Nicole held on. "Joe, thank you for coming to my party." He bent down, kissed her forehead, something he hadn't done since Emma. "Best party I ever been to." He walked out of the ICU. Hound was waiting in the hallway with the rest of the brothers who'd made it to the hospital. Trigger, Smokey, Wrench, a dozen more. They'd been standing guard, making sure no one who shouldn't be there got past, because that's what brothers did. Hound clapped Joe on the shoulder. "She good?" "She's good." "Then let's get you cleaned up. You look like hammered shit." They walked toward the exit, boots echoing on linoleum, leather creaking. The sound of family. Joe's phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. His blood went cold. He opened it. A photo. Recent. Timestamp from 10 minutes ago. Nicole's grandmother's house. In Henderson. The address visible on the mailbox. Then a second message. Crow has friends. They don't forget. See you soon. Joe stopped walking. Hound saw his face. What? Joe showed him the phone. The brothers went silent. Then Trigger spoke. Voice like gravel. So it ain't over. No, Joe said. It ain't over. He looked back toward the ICU. Toward Nicole. Toward a little girl who'd already survived more than any kid should have to. But we are going to finish it. His phone rang. Detective Vargas. Joe answered. Maddox, we got a problem. Crow made bail 2 hours ago. The world stopped. How? His lawyers argued he wasn't a flight risk. Judge accepted a $50 million bond. Vargas's voice was tight. He walked out of county 20 minutes ago. We got units watching his known locations, but he's not going to his known locations. Silence. Then Vargas, quiet. Where's he going? Joe looked at the photo on his phone, at Nicole's grandmother's address. He's going to finish what he started. The line crackled, then a sound in the background. Vargas's police radio, multiple units calling in. Shots fired. Henderson. Residential. Officers requesting backup. The address came through clear. Nicole's grandmother's house. Joe was already running. Joe woke up 3 days later to the smell of crayons and antiseptic. His shoulder was on fire. His chest was wrapped tight. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. But Nicole was sitting in the plastic chair beside his bed, coloring. She looked up, smiled. You're awake. Unfortunately. Nurse Kelly appeared, crying happy tears. The FBI cleared the club. Vargas testified you saved Nicole's life. The mayor called you heroes. You're all over the news. Joe grunted. I'm an idiot with a hole in his shoulder. You're my idiot, Nicole said, not looking up from her drawing. Kelly explained the rest. Crow had tried to reach the grandmother's house. Didn't make it. Vargas and a SWAT team intercepted him 2 blocks away. He'd resisted arrest. It hadn't gone well for him. He was back in county, bail revoked, facing federal charges that would keep him locked up until he died. Nicole was safe. Finally, completely safe. 6 months later, Joe stood in the iron chapel watching Nicole teach Hound how to draw Christmas trees. Her hair had grown back, soft brown curls framing a face that had color now, life now. She wore her honorary Hell's Angels vest over a sundress. Her grandmother had driven her up from San Diego for the monthly visit that had become tradition. Half birthday party, Smokey had declared. Kid deserves 2 celebrations a year. The clubhouse was full of laughter and cake and bikers singing off-key. Nicole was in the center of it all, radiant, teaching grown men with scarred knuckles how to draw pine trees. Joe stepped outside. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly, sky painted red and orange by the setting sun. He pulled out a cigarette, his first since Emma died, and lit it. The smoke tasted like closure. He looked at the Emma tattoo on his forearm, then back through the window at Nicole's laughter. Emma, baby, he said to the sky, voice rough. I know I couldn't save you, but I saved her, and I think that's what you'd want. He took another drag. The patch doesn't make us angels, but sometimes it makes us the closest thing to angels these broken kids will ever see. He flicked the cigarette, watched it spark against concrete, then went back inside. Nicole ran up to him, holding a new drawing. Him on his Harley, her in the sidecar, both wearing Santa hats. At the top, in green crayon, friends ride together forever. Joe's throat tightened. He took the drawing, taped it to the clubhouse wall beside photos of fallen brothers and old runs and 30 years of memories. "It's perfect, darling." She hugged his waist. He rested his hand on her head. Outside, engines roared to life, the brothers heading out on an evening ride. The ground shook, not with violence this time, but with the thunder of family. Nicole looked up at Joe. "Can we ride tomorrow before I go home?" "Wouldn't miss it," she smiled, that gap-toothed smile that had started all of this. And in that moment, in a clubhouse that smelled like motor oil and leather and second chances, Joe finally understood what redemption looked like. It looked like a little girl in a Santa hat, asking a broken man to come to her party. And it looked like him saying yes. Because sometimes the most dangerous men become the safest harbor for the most innocent souls. If you believe that sometimes the most broken souls become the fiercest protectors, like and share this story. Hit subscribe now, and also check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you.